Okay, so soy, 94% grown in the United States is GMO. Corn, 88%. Cotton, 91%. Canola, 90%. Sugar beets, 95%. Alfalfa, yet to be determined. It's only been in the field a couple of years. Okay, and then there are a whole bunch of other products that aren't really on the market yet. Zucchini, both yellow and green. Papayas, we do get those. From Hawaii, all of them, almost all of it is GMO. Unbelievable. Some of the other ones, chicory, we have 3 different cultivars that are GMO, not on the market really yet. Creeping bent grass, we had a big fight over that one about 5 years ago. Flax, we have 1, melons 2, papaya 3, plums, potatoes, we have 28 varieties. I don't know if any of you guys remember when McDonald's said they were going to use GMO potatoes and everyone said, no, we're not going to buy them. They took them off the market. We have 28 varieties. I don't know how much is actually on the market. Tobacco, tomatoes, there are 8, and wheat. Only 1 has been approved. And all of these, they're either approved or in the process of being approved. How are GMOs produced? Does anyone know how we get there? From a seed corn to a GMO cultivar?
No.
What we do is we isolate the DNA from the cultivar, and then we isolate the DNA from whatever we want to inject into that cultivar. There are 2 ways of doing that, of injecting it. One is called a gene gun, where they literally shoot it into the DNA of the cultivar. It's not really very precise. It's hit or miss. And then the other one is bacteriophage. You guys ever heard of that?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Bacteriophage is the virus for bacteria. They're very cool looking if you see the drawings of them. And what they do is, because viruses don't have their own energy source, they inject their DNA into the cells of the host, and it replicates in there and gets into their cells. So that's how the other way they do it. Once again, not particularly precise, even though everyone in the industry says, oh, this is very precise, we know exactly what we're doing. No, not really. And then they start planting these seeds to see if they get the traits they're looking for. Predominantly, what that is the production of BT, which is inherent in dirt, from a bacteria, which is a pesticide. It's a corn worm that kills corn. That's one of the main ones they're going after. But it kills everything else too, like monarch butterflies. And it's in every, the pesticide is in every cell of this corn. That means if we eat that corn, even if it's processed, we also are getting that in our own blood systems. And then the other side of it is that it is resistant to herbicides, which mostly Roundup. You guys have all heard of Roundup? Glyphosate, that's it, glyphosate. Roundup is manufactured by Monsanto, and they have claimed over 30 years or 20 years that this stuff goes into the environment and breaks down. Well, they found that it doesn't really do that, and that it is poisonous to humans and other mammals, especially in Argentina, where they've been growing a lot of it. They're having a lot of problems with cattle, especially losing their fetuses. The problem is, because this stuff is all patented, we can't just test it. You need to get permission from the patent holder. So the testing is controlled by the folks that hold those patents. That kind of leads into, how did this stuff get approved? All of this is called novel traits that these cultivars have. They're claiming they're novel traits, that's how they got the patents, but they're saying there's no difference for approval. It's a new trait that no other corn or soy or whatever the cultivar is has. We've created that, so it's novel, so we're going to patent it. But on the other side, for consumption, they're claiming that it's exactly the same. How can that be? Or can it be? No. No. If you change the DNA of something, have you changed that organism? If you put a fish DNA in me and it's in every cell of my body, am I the same? No. Do you know what proteins that DNA is going to produce? Probably not. And scientifically, it doesn't make sense. What if they used a antibiotic-resistant organism by mistake in that DNA and we eat it? What happens? Do we know? Is that a danger? And that's already a problem from our factory farming, where we're feeding all our animals in large industrial farming lots and lots of antibiotics. 80% of the antibiotics in this country are fed to farm animals. Yeah, and they've also found that those traits, the DNA of those traits, actually get up and walk. These are living organisms. They migrate through the ecosystem into the waterways, into the soil. They claim that, it's not an issue, and since 1974, I believe, or 72, the FDA has been hedging on controlling these antibiotics in our food system. Residue of naturally occurring plant toxins, that's another issue. And Bt toxin, which already exists in soil, when we insert that into cotton, has a lot of it. Cotton's a really good example. All the cotton, GMO cotton, is Bt cotton. That means that those pesticides are in every cell of that plant. When you make a t-shirt out of that cotton, is that t-shirt going to have toxins in it? Bt toxin?
Yeah.
Every cell of it. That means when you put that on, even after you washed it, it's still emitting Bt toxin because it's in every cell. Kind of scary. What's happening with Bt is that they're finding that it's not breaking down. Even after it's eaten by animals, it's coming out. And then it's going back into the soil and being washed into the waterways. It's a pesticide. What's happening to all the organisms in the waterways? They're all dying. You'll see creeks running by farms where all the bugs are dead. I think it's kind of scary to walk into a field of corn or anything else or surrounding it, and there are no bugs. There are no butterflies, there are no flies, there are no nothing. Fireflies, all dead.
Wow.
From the Bt. And we've used Bt for years. We've extracted it and used it in organics because it's naturally existing, but we're using the amounts produced by these plants are 10, 20-fold higher than, don't quote me exactly on that, but it's much, much higher than what we have used traditionally to control pests. The first GM cultivar, do you guys know what that was? Yeah, 1994, the Flavor Savor tomato. Did very well on the market for a couple of years. But then, and they were making tomato paste out of it. It was selling very well in Europe. And it was all labeled. And then people started realizing that something was amiss here, and they stopped buying it. And that was pulled off the market a couple of years later. Probably around 1996, 98, somewhere around there. Can you tell when you're buying foods that have GM products in them?
No.
There are a couple ways to figure it out. If roughly 90% of corn, soy, cotton, and canola, roughly, from mid-80s to high 90s, are being produced GMO, when you buy cottonseed oil, when you buy canola oil, corn oil, or what's marked vegetable oil, which is a blend usually of those, do you think there are going to be GMOs in there? Yeah, probably. Almost all processed foods they estimate that 80% of all the processed foods in the grocery store are carrying GMOs, have GMOs in them. Okay? When you read a label, all those words that you don't understand, those are usually derived from GMOs. Okay? All those preservatives, dough conditioners, all that stuff. All those long names that we don't understand are all GMO products. It's got to go somewhere. Here's a really good one, vitamin C. Where do we get our vitamin C from? The stuff that you buy, you know, as a supplement. What's that derived from?
Roses?
That's a good guess. Or oranges or citrus, maybe? It's from ethanol, corn ethanol. What's the next? Ethanol is alcohol. What's the next step in the food process after alcohol? Wine goes to vinegar. Corn alcohol goes to vinegar. And then they extract vitamin C out of it, or citric acid. It's not really efficient, but it sure is cheap because we subsidize it. Kind of see where I'm going here? We subsidize the stuff that's not good for us, and we don't subsidize the stuff that is good for us. And we're eating stuff we don't want to be eating. And they're fighting to keep us from labeling it. What's happening in Washington right now with I-522? Do you guys know about that?
No.
Okay, that's the labeling initiative that's on the ballot in November up in Washington State. And up until this last week or two, there were hundreds of people, individuals, who were donating on yes on I-522. And just in the last couple of weeks, the Grocers Manufacturing Association, who was big donors for Prop 37 in California, and Monsanto and Dow and Bayer and all the usual suspects, are all giving huge donations to no on I-522. So what happened in California is happening in Washington, except for everybody's prepared for it. What happened, and this is the analogy I often give, which is what happened with Proposition 8. We got Prop 8 in California, but everything's changed in the last couple of years. Now, we have, through the Supreme Court, we now have gay marriage. And I think the same thing is happening with labeling of GMOs. It did not pass in California, which is the most populous state in the country, but it is on the ballot in legislation in 28 states now, just in the last year. There are certain manufacturers that are labeling their food no GMOs, and what they're doing is in their contracts with their suppliers having binding legal language in their contracts stating we will not take this, and if we will not take GMOs, and if we find it in here, you're responsible, you pay for it. So it's happening on that level, but I think on a legal level we also need to deal with it. 350 of our crops our food crops are pollinated by bees, everything from almonds to zucchinis. And they believe that the stressors from GMOs and the BT is killing them. It's also the neonicotinoid pesticides, which are manufactured by Bayer. And they've put a moratorium on them in Europe, and we're trying to force the EPA to do the same thing in the US. And there's been a movement for about 7 years on that. California is the largest producer of almonds in the world. And our almond crop is 90% of the world crop. And because roughly 50% of beehives have been dying off, they're kept mostly in the winter up in, I think it's Nebraska, don't quote me on that one. And what they've been doing is feeding them high fructose corn syrup and water, because they take their honey for our food when it's their food, and feeding them high fructose corn syrup through the winter. And they believe that that and mites and the pollens from GMOs and the neonicotinoids. It's a combination of a whole lot of toxins that are killing them off. Do you guys know how we came up with all these pesticides and herbicides and nitrogen-based fertilizers? Where it comes from?
Yeah.
Where?
World War II.
Yep, end of World War II. When they were decommissioning all the bomb-making and poison-making facilities in the country, they had to do something with it. We turned most of our bomb-making and poison-making organizations into pesticide and herbicide and fungicide and rodenticide production, which is now put on our food products and derived from petrochemicals. Why is it that they use nitrogen-based fertilizer for bombs? It's made from natural gas. The West Texas fertilizer plant, that was natural gas. That's why it blew up. It's kind of scary. So if you buy conventional broccoli, what is it? It's mostly petrochemicals. A lot of it is. So understanding where this comes from and where it's going, and we can take it back. I think first thing is labeling it, and second thing is not buying it, and then it will disappear like the flavor saver tomato.